Can one person really make a difference? Oh, heck yes. This is Greg Archer with another episode of Mystics in a Chat Room Conversations with Agents of Change. On today's program, we have Naomi Pitcairn, the awfully creative, adventurous, Southern California based artist, activist, free speech proponent whose site specific works have managed to turn heads from Oakland to LA. Her efforts in Chalkupy, think Occupy, but with chalk on a sidewalk, have truly become the talk of 2017. Learn more about what was behind the endeavor and how it came to be, and how Naomi is taking activism to a new level, and how you too can be an activist. You just have to learn how. Wonderful, Naomi Pitcairn, and thank you so much for being part of this show today.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. So let's talk about you. Activism and advocacy and standing up for what you find to be just, and fighting for those things that you see that are not just. Why is that so important for you? And when did that sort of start for you? Maybe those are two questions maybe we can begin with, because there's so much to talk about with what you're doing.
It really, for me, started late in life. I was not a born activist. I guess George W. Bush should be credited for me becoming an activist. I literally felt obliged to become one. To me, it reminded me of Nazi Germany. So I didn't want to be one of those people who sat back and did nothing.
Wow.
So it was just really, once Bush got in office, I was really upset about the wars and Guantanamo Bay and torture, just all these heinous things. So I never wanted to be an activist. I just felt like I had better become
Right. And so what did you do when that moment occurred? Like when you had that, okay, I have to do something, that spark that drove you forward. What did you first do?
The first thing I did is I had a little move on party, and nobody followed through and did their assignments, and I cried. I cried. I had no idea how hard it would be.
Wait, so how many people showed up at the party?
About 15. This was a while ago. This was maybe 2005 or 4.
Wow.
Okay. And we were supposed to get our friends and family to make some call, and none of my friends and family did it. And then my more experienced activist friends laughed at me when I was crying about it. They were like, "Yeah, welcome to the activism world."
Right. So, and I want to get back to that, because there is a certain flow that one, or a protocol, not a protocol for lack of a better word, but you do learn how to become an activist and what that means. But I want to get to that in a little bit, because there are things that people need to know, But so then what happened after that? Well, the people didn't show up at the party.
No, some people came to the party, but they didn't make the calls. So it was kind of a waste of time, perhaps. However, as this little card says, a winner is just a loser who tried one more time.
Oh, I love that card.
Yeah, that's why it's up here at my little altar. I really think that just not quitting is the most important thing, that you learn from your mistakes. I've seen people who were really bad at what they were trying to do, but they kept doing it and they ended up good at it. You kind of can't help but get better at what you do when you keep doing it.
Right. So what did you do next, or what were the next series of events? That was in 2005, so.
I was probably doing a lot of collectivism, and I always made donations and stuff, but I didn't really like having to deal with people taking me to lunch just to ask me for money and stuff. I just decided, all right, I'm going to think of my own thing, because volunteering had often not been really satisfying, to be honest. I don't mean to tell people don't volunteer, but sometimes the jobs I was given were dull. And I still do some volunteering. I've done some door knocking for Bernie, got signatures for this proposal to keep open space in Ventura County. But I guess I'm easily bored. So that's probably why I ended up going to art school and working in a creative field, because it's not boring. And so I guess I decided, okay, I have to do some of my own stuff. Oh, actually, that's not really exactly the way it happened. Was really the Bradley Manning breakfast with Obama that you came to.
Yes,
was the first thing
that was
that
a
I
surprise.
had organized myself. And
that's 2011, right, in San Francisco?
Yes.
Okay.
That was 2011 San Francisco. And what had happened is my boyfriend had sent me a link to Collateral Murder, which is a video, one of the things that Chelsea released. And I was so shocked when I saw that. And right away I thought, I want to help that person. Whoever released that, I want to help them. I had been kind of saying go WikiLeaks anyway. So I looked into it a little and found out who it was. And it turned out that Courage to Resist, which is a program in Oakland, were the ones supporting, at the time, Bradley, now Chelsea. And I just went down there and I was stuffing envelopes. And Jeff, who was running the organization at the time, said, "Oh, I wish I could get the Yes Men." And so I just went and emailed the Yes Men, and I heard back from them. And they gave us what you would call a Yes Lab. Although really, they are really good at going after corporate, and going after government is trickier. The way they kind of work, and some other organizations as well, is you get a website and you get a similar name. Let's say you're going to go after ExxonMobil. You might get ExxonMobil One, or what is it? ExxonMobil, isn't it? and then you put up a kind of a fake website maybe, and you have an email, and then you send emails from that address to people, and then you can show up at a convention or something or other, or an interview representing that organization. But when it comes to the government, they'll have a .gov. So
right.
we were
It's
all
trickier.
trying to figure out how to get to a .gov person. And then this invitation to Omelets with Obama came in my email. So I thought, well, that's like pennies from heaven or whatever.
Just like that, it just arrived.
It just came. And sometimes, like, activism can be like that. A lot of the times you're slogging through the mud, but other times it seems like the universe just lines up. And I always go with it when it does. I just take it as a sign. I'm not religious or particularly superstitious, but when things line up like that, I'm like, I go with it. Okay. So we started deciding to go to this event, and it was more work than you would think, planning to just invite people and show up, because we had to figure out how to get the story out of the room. I originally, actually, the organizer of the event gave me most of the information. I would call her up and say, "Oh, I'm just so proud of myself inviting all these people to support Obama. Can I bring a reporter to report on my wonderfulness," or whatever?
Right.
And she said, "Well, no, you can't bring a reporter." And then I said, "Well, can I take pictures?" And yes, you can take pictures. And I said, "Well, is there anyone else I can't bring besides a reporter?" And she said, "Well, nobody with a criminal background." And I said, "Well, I have a criminal record." And she said, "Oh, that's okay because you already gave money. So criminals are welcome as long as they're giving money."
And that was a $5,000 a plate brunch, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That was pretty much that spring's entire income.
Right. So how many people did you invite and showed up?
I don't remember. We had about 20, I guess.
I think there were 2 tables. Yeah.
There was 2 tables, and that's why I got to go into the very special private meeting. Like the event we were about 200, maybe 300 people, so it wasn't very intimate. But since I was such a wonderful person, I got invited into this smaller meeting, and all the important people like Nancy Pelosi was there, Willie Brown, Gavin Newsom, Ed Lee, Dianne Feinstein. And I was really, really nervous knowing what was going to happen next. So I was kind of babbling. I decided to talk about marijuana and how great it was. When
Okay,
I met the president,
so there
I
you are.
said,
You're talking about that. Okay, so how did that go
and I
down?
seemed silly, and I was silly. I mean, as they say, only the fool can tell the king the truth. Um, but I said to Obama when I met him, I said, "Mr. President, I smoke marijuana every day," and he said, "That's good."
He just that's good. Wow. Okay.
That's good, he said. And then I yelled, "Hey, everybody, did you hear the president says it's good that I smoke marijuana?" Now, I mean, I think Obama is a very intelligent man. He certainly was gracious. But he's also killed all kinds of people with drones. And I'm sorry, but I don't think drones are surgical. I think he knows that too. And he's done some bad things, as much as he's a better president than many. And I do respect him. But it just goes to show that every politician will just tell you exactly what you want to hear if you're going to give them $5,000 or more.
Interesting. Interesting.
It's all about money.
So,
and on the way in, oh, go ahead. Sorry, you want to have a question?
no, go ahead. So go ahead. On the way in.
On the way in, I had the signs in this portfolio that I hadn't done a great deal to embellish with make it look authentic. It was just an empty portfolio with all these yellow signs, "Free Black Bradley Manning" on them. And David Solnit was next to me. And he said, "You're never going to get these in." And I said, "Oh, yes, I will. The green shield," which is money, right? So I held it out and I said to the Secret Service, "Do you want to look in my portfolio?" And he said, "Oh, no, I don't need to." I said, "I really don't mind. I'm happy to open it for you." And he said, "No, no, 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 no." And David was just like, "Oh my God." I was like, "I told you."
Interesting. Interesting. Wow. So
We worship money in this country. So as long as and you can tell, I mean, people who do crimes, if they they don't, they go to a country club prison, or they don't do any time at all. It's people of color. It's the poor people who get serious prison time. Oh, and whistleblowers, of course.
whistleblowers. Okay. So, I was invited to this event sort of at the last minute. I was running a publication in Santa Cruz, California at the time, and our mutual colleague, Jane Sullivan, said, "Come up for this." And so me being curious, because that's what, writers are and creative people are, I came, and I know what happened, but I want to share with people what happened, because, there I am, at one table, and you are at another table with some other folks. And so what did you have planned? Like, what was your initial thought of what you were going to do at that breakfast? I mean, it did make the news. It made it got into Wired. It got into many, worldwide. Jon Stewart even mentioned it and poked fun at it. But
he ridiculed me. Yes, that's what he does. I love Jon Stewart. I mean, I was being a clown, and so I was treated as one. Which is maybe why I'm still alive today.
But do talk about that. So what was your intention? Like, what did you had organized folks to sing along to?
Yes, to sing a song. And it's really the biggest tragedy of the whole thing is what a horrible singer I am, and most of us were. I mean, we really sucked at the performance, and it's too bad because it was a lovely song. People should check out Fresh Juice Party's song. I guess it's the Bradley Manning song. Anyway, it was a lovely song, and we butchered it. I don't know if you sang badly, but I certainly did.
People don't want to hear me sing.
People don't want to. They heard it. They didn't want to hear what we were singing, or anyway. The basic intention was to have more people aware about Bradley, now Chelsea Manning. At the time, she wasn't that known. People didn't know this story, and so we just wanted to get the story out and have more people watch Collateral Murder, have more people support her,
right?
Which they, in that sense, I think it was a successful action.
Wow. So there you are at this breakfast, and from my recollection, President Obama is speaking, and At one moment, from my recollection, you started singing, and the
Well, I
group.
stood up and said, "Mr. President, we wrote you a song. Can we sing it?" And that literally took like 8 hours to figure out what to say.
Okay, just that line. Just that
After
line.
8 hours, came up with that.
And you stood up, and
Yes.
then what happened?
And I mean, the whole thing was that was the scary moment because I didn't want anybody to get hurt. So only I stood up. And my original idea, because I'm a little bit outrageous sometimes, I thought we could all take our shirts off and have our underwear say "Reach Bradley Manning." um, but people talked me out of that. So a couple of us had our T-shirts and we had shirts over them. And so the plan was that if things seemed safe enough, because we did actually David Solnit did a whole resistance, like peaceful resistance training, because it would have been a disaster if the Secret Service got upset and somebody got shot or something. So we were kind of feeling the atmosphere, but then just kind of took that one T-shirt off, and underneath was the Bradley Manning T-shirt. And we had been planning just to take pictures of the signs and the T-shirts and hope the story got out, but thank goodness, Carla Marinucci of the Chronicle, the San Francisco Chronicle, was in the habit of whipping out her cell phone as she did, which made it so that the sound was available because California is a one-party consent state, meaning that you can only audio, I mean, it's a two-party consent state, forgive me, two-party consent state. So you can't audio tape anybody without their permission. You can, like in New York or North Dakota, but not California.
Right.
So we were just going to have to make it visual. But then with Carla Marinucci whipped out her cell phone, it was all fair game. And then they actually, the Obama people tried to suppress it. They didn't want her to put it out, but the Chronicle said, no, this is news. And so Carla was, after that, she was banned from all further Obama events.
Fascinating. So you stood up, you took off your sweatshirt. There was a shirt
Outer
underneath.
shirt.
Yeah, there was a shirt underneath,
Yeah.
and you were escorted out.
Yes. And I asked them if I was under arrest, and they said only if I came back.
Got it.
And then they came out and asked me to come back, and I had to sing the song again for the Secret Service. But they didn't listen to the whole thing. Once they got the idea, they asked me to shut up.
They asked you to come back. So tell me what was going through your mind when there you are, you stand up, you address the President of the United States. What's going through your mind? What's going through your mind as you're taking off your outer shirt and to expose the T-shirt? What did the T-shirt say?
It just said "Free Bradley Manning." I think it was. I can go get it if you want.
That's okay.
I still have it, but nothing. I'm just thinking, sing, just don't stop singing.
Were you afraid? Were you frightened?
I was nervous, but I'm not a very frightened person. I mean, I'm sorry, he's just a person.
Right.
I mean, actually, Carla Marinucci asked me later, how did you have the guts to do that? And I was like, he's just a person. He's not even necessarily a very good person. He's a very bright person, but he's not a saint, and he's not God, and he's not a dictator.
Right.
We're working on
that. Which we'll get to in a second. But several seconds. So you were escorted out, but they invited you back in to sing the song of the Secret Service. Yeah,
in a closed bar.
Okay, that's kind of trippy. What was that like?
Well, I asked them, you said that I'd be arrested if I went back in there. So they go, you're not going to be arrested. And David Solnit, who's such a lovely man, he came with me. He kind of guarded me and kept an eye on me the whole time. And it was just, that was lovely. It was fine. I was kind of giddy at that point. In the pictures that were in the newspaper, I had my hand up, and it looked like I was doing some kind of victory wave, but I actually recognized a couple of the medical marijuana protesters I knew across the street. And I was like, hey, Mike, what's up? And so I wasn't really, I was just really giddy. I mean, when you just got through a tense situation, you just feel kind of a lot of adrenaline.
Right. It's running through your body. You're vibrating. So I had a kind of a high intensity pace. And you were interviewed by the press then, and I mean, this whole thing went international.
Yeah, and I think I really owe the success of the story not being distorted to Joey Skaggs. I don't know if you know who he
I
is.
do know. Yeah.
He hoaxes the media as his art, and he's my self-ordained mentor. Anyway, he said to me when I was planning this, they're going to take your story and rip it apart and totally twist it around. And because he's experienced that, he learned the hard way, and he's very good now at making sure it's the story he wants. So what we ended up doing is we made a website and put our manifesto or our statement up on it, as well as the lyrics to the song. And then people just basically copied and pasted. Because I didn't really say that much to the people. I said, oh, go to freshjuiceparty.com.
Right, right.
And I mean, oh, you're a journalist. Do you know how overworked you guys are? I mean, it's insane trying to, I don't know how when you sleep or how you survive the exhaustion, but it's nice to be able to copy and paste a little bit. You know, it made it easy for everybody.
It's become a thing in the last
some
15
article
years.
in another country explaining that a Benjamin was $100 bill. So they really reported it very accurately.
Wow. So, I find that, were you always somebody, but because that does take courage, were you always
had balls of brass.
So you did, even as a child growing up, and you were very courageous. You were very brave.
I was rude at times.
You were rude.
I was disrespectful. I've always had an issue with authority. Yes.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you mentioned Fresh Juice Party. So let's talk a little bit about that, and then move on to some other juicy things. Chalkupy. And for those that are tuning in via audio or video or both, look in the beginning and the end, and you'll see links to a bunch of these things and photos and stuff, and you can learn a whole bunch more. But so talk a little bit about Fresh Juice Party and how that came into being and where that evolved, and then we can maybe talk about Chalkupy too.
Well, Fresh Juice Party was basically just formed for that Obama event. We needed a name for the group, and my friend Pratibha Gautam said, well, you know, we have the tea party, and so we thought that fresh juice was also a breakfast beverage.
Right.
So we decided to be Fresh Juice. And I think Fresh Juice wasn't available, the domain name, so we got freshjuiceparty.com, and then just put up the thing there. And then I guess we decided to keep working together. And we did quite a few other things together. We gave a party for John Kiriakou when he was going to prison. We gave him the orange ball at the Hay Adams in D.C., looking down on the White Horse House because we look down on people who torture. And they wrote quite a few songs, and they talked. And in the end, though, I guess having an organization didn't work for me personally, or working with an organization, because it just makes you more visible. And as an activist, unless you're soliciting funds, there's really there's no reason to have a big name, honestly. You're better flying under the radar sometimes.
Right. No, I get that. So
and people accused us of being, for money and this and that. You know, people always say you're making all this money doing this or whatever. I'd love to make some money doing it. So far, it's just really expensive.
I mean,
actually.
Right. That's a big misconception.
Activism is expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, even buying the chalk is expensive.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Chalkupy. And when did that come into being?
Well, that happened. So Fresh Juice Party, we were all involved with Occupy Oakland, which was a great Occupy, honestly. I think people were a little bit afraid of it because Oakland also is not afraid. Oakland's the bravest city I ever met. People won't take crap, and they stand up to authority when it's wrong, and which got them kind of a bad reputation maybe, but I think it was totally undeserved. I mean, there were some troublemakers, but most of those people were here in my book. And they also are so funny. So we loved Occupy Oakland, and when they removed the camp, somebody had chalked the word Occupy in the Oscar Grant Plaza, and they had about 10 cops, 2 guys with spray, the power washers, and a bunch of city workers. It was this big deal to remove the word occupy. And so one of us was sitting on the O. We all sat down on letters, and one girl was like, well, I'm knitting. I can't move. I'm busy. And another girl was drawing, and another guy was resting. And so they said we were going to be arrested for obstructing public access if we didn't move. And we said, well, why do you have to clean it? And they said, for sanitary reasons. Well, the P, where everybody pees in that square, is about 100 yards over there. So he's like, well, the P's over there. And this one girl was actually chasing them with a lime stream, yelling, clean the fucking pee, clean the fucking pee. And the guy was like, no, we're not here for that. So it was just like the word occupy was unsanitary. So,
and this was in 2012, right? 2012?
Yeah, right at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And then, so finally, only this one girl, Dandelion, she refused to move. And they said, okay, so they said they were going to arrest us for obstructing public access, which is kind of the thing a lot of protesters get arrested for. And I just wanted to mention that in Oakland, the bail for obstructing public access is $5,000, and the bail for a pimp is $2,500. So I guess we all should just become pimps. It's not nearly as bad as refusing to move off of a letter. There's
double the cost.
This is why people rebel against Oakland authority.
Huh.
Dandelion risked it, and they decided not to arrest her. She was like this lovely young woman, would have looked bad. So they erased the O and a C and the Y, and she was sitting in the word cup. So it was kind of a Pyrrhic victory. But they kept saying, well, you could just put it back. We just need to wash it off. You can put it right back. And so I was like, I'll be there. And we put it back. And the first one was an anonymous mask. And then there was just the 3 of us from Fresh Juice Party, but people started helping, even with the first one. And over time, I guess about 200 people have helped. They just stopped by and help. And we picked up a whole crew right there in the plaza of young people, and they would be there every Friday. And they traveled with us. We got really close to a lot of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
And these are very big, right? I mean, they're almost billboard size, or they are billboard size.
And I actually used to be a billboard painter when I was in my 20s. I started in Philadelphia, then I went to North Jersey, and finally I got to Times Square, which was my goal, painting those movie posters. I got to do Anthony Perkins for Psycho 3 and a couple other groovy things.
Oh my gosh.
It was a great job.
Psycho
I loved
3.
it. Yeah, I mean, I loved that job. It taught me so much, and it just taught me a ton. The shop in New York was a great shop, Artcraft Strauss. We also did those big neon spectaculars. So all the things I use in Chalkupy were things that the billboard people taught me.
Amazing. All right, so give us a little bit of the technical things that go into creating a Chalkupy event. Obviously, there's chalk involved. There's coordination with the people that you're going to have there with you. But as you mentioned, people end up helping. So what goes into that? And do you yourself come up with the concept or the image that is going to be on the sidewalk, or is it a collaborative thing?
I like to use other people's input. I mean, in the end, I make the final decision because not everything's going to read. Like, it has to be simple, for instance. You can't have too much detail. It has to kind of have impact. So I have certain design criteria, but I've chalked other people's art. Melanie Cervantes is a local Oakland artist, really great poster. She's so talented. We did one of hers, and she came down and signed it. We did one of Fabiana Rodriguez's. We did one of this guy, R. Black, who's a wonderful designer. And we did, what was his name? I'm sorry, this French photographer who does these lovely kind of photographs of bones in shapes that, like, it was a gun made out of bones. And I'm trying to think of his name, and I can't, and it's terrible. I try to credit the people I use their work. Sometimes if I can get in touch with them, they'll come down and actually sign it. And then I usually run the tagline by people. For instance, a lot of the best taglines are not mine. I think Drew Phillips came up with the one when we did the police tank, and it said Oakland's latest weapon in the war on poverty. I think he came up with that one. Right. And we did one of Buddha sitting. Berkeley was going to have a no-sit law, and we did a picture of Buddha, and it said arresting people for sitting is unenlightened. And I think that I had help with that one. Many of them, it's better. Oh, and once with Alan Bluford, I was going to say shot in the back, and he wasn't shot in the back. So all these people, when we put it up on Facebook, they said he wasn't shot in the back. And I'm like, whoops, that's why we run it by you guys. And so we said his last words, which were, I didn't do anything.
Wow.
So it's really important, I think, to have other people fact check me. Oh, and another thing, I did really bad mistake, which I chalked it. It was too late, but we did the fraternity pig because these police officers had been having sex with this underage girl, and the mayor had said that they acted like fraternity boys. So we did a kind of sleazy picture, and then it said P-I-G in Greek, only apparently it said fig, not pig. My friend who
a big difference
Greek said, it says, we used we used PH instead of P. And, those kinds of things happen, and I'm not going to lie. I said fig.
Right.
I meant to say pig.
And you just did.
I was so proud of myself, too, using the Greek letters and all. I was like, oh, I'm so cool. I'm so smart.
Right. And you just did something in Los Angeles in April. Well, was it in April?
April 22nd. Yeah. The last one we did was for the Science March. It's really sad when you need a march to support science.
Very
you would
sad.
think people would be all for it, but it was a rocket, and it said, science, you don't have to believe for it to work. And that's a little bit of a takeoff on Richard Dawkins, who he said something like, science works, bitches. He said that. It was really cute.
Right.
And Pershing Square is an interesting place. The first time we went there, it was, we were still in Oakland. I'm in the Los Angeles area now, but the first time we went there, it was a month after the art walk. They have an art walk there every second Thursday, and people had been rubber bulleted and tear gassed for chalking there. So we decided to come to the next art walk and chalk. And whenever it's a case where I think that I'm going to be arrested, possibly, since I follow everybody's cases, all the chalkers' legal cases, I know, and Reverend Billy too, you're never allowed to mention the First Amendment. So I chalk the First Amendment or mention it in the chalk because then it's going to be the evidence. In my trial, they're not going to be able to exclude the First Amendment. It's going to be the evidence. And I really don't want any kind of trial that I wouldn't enjoy. It's in that trial I'm looking forward to. So anyway, we talked I Heart the First Amendment and learned a lot because I guess they didn't stop us until there was about 14 cops. We had about 30 chalkers, and when there was about 14 cops, they started putting us in handcuffs. And we finished in 46 minutes because we were under pressure. That was our fastest chalk ever, 46 minutes. On the average, they take about 3 hours. So I read all the criminal statutes too, and in California, the vandalism statutes revolve around the word defacement, not about temporary. It's just chalk. It's washable. It's the word defacement. And I was thinking, wow, it sounds like it's an art competition, and it was because they let us go, and the police spokesperson said it's because it's good art.
Interesting.
That's why we got to go free. It was good art.
Interesting. You mentioned Reverend Billy and Reverend Billy Taylor.
Reverend Billy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's doing...
He's my minister.
He's doing...
the Church of Stop Shopping or the Church of Hallelujah.
Right.
Highly recommend people worship there.
Right.
He's really cool. Unmarried 50 gay people in New York until gay people get married. He had them all dressed up in wedding dresses and all. He said, "You're now all unmarried."
Right.
Yeah, he actually came to one of the chalks. We did work with him at one chalk in Oakland.
So what have you learned? I mean, you must have learned so much about, I guess, the way the law works and what our rights are as people, citizens who want to protest. What are some of the things you've learned along the way about?
Well,
about this?
I've learned that people like art. Like, I mean, they put us in the handcuffs. The next time I came back to Pershing Square to do some more good art, they said I was going to be arrested. I said, no, I'm not. You already let me go the first time. I'm a good artist. And then the third time, the lady who runs the park said, we're going to arrest you. And I was like, no, you're not. And then she said, well, can't you just work with me and get a permit? And I won't get a permit, because when you get a permit, you can be arrested for a whole bunch more things that are a violation of the terms of the permit. Don't get a permit. Oakland never gets a permit. Um, so now the lady who runs Pershing Square actually is a friend, almost, you could call her. We're on great terms. She puts the chalk pictures up on the site, and the other day she offered to buy us some chalk. So I think that what happens is people like art, and as long as you're a little bit charming with it, you can actually get away with stuff that you couldn't get away with if you were offensive, if it was ugly, if it wasn't entertaining.
Right, exactly.
Like, I mean, this is just my opinion now, but I believe that most protest is a performance for the media in order to win hearts and minds. And so you don't want to give a bad performance. You don't want to do a performance that makes you look bad. You want to make people go, oh, that's great. I want to come out and do that. I want to join. I want to have it's fun. It's creative.
Exactly. And
tone is everything, in my opinion. Now, there's other people who are like of the diversity of tactics kind of school, but I just don't see any reason to do something that won't make people like you, or most people like you. I mean, but as John Lewis, the great and wonderful John Lewis said, every protest has to have a little bit of sting. So I guess it's like this balancing act between having your sting but not pissing people off. And as far as I have a theory that the police arrest you at night because they're tired and they want to go home. I mean, because I'm always tired and I go to bed like kind of early.
yeah,
And I never get arrested, hardly ever. And I think it's because they're just like, all right, we're done. We want to go home. Let's just arrest all these people. I think a lot of the way you're working with the law is you're still working with people. Like Grandmaster Flash said, there's no justice. It's just us. So it's partly how you talk to people, your tone, your energy that you put out. I mean, there are laws, but obviously the police don't always respect those laws, and people don't always respect the laws. In the end, we're often just dealing with human nature.
Fascinating. So how do you feel you've grown by stepping into this work?
Yeah, life isn't as good as it used to be in some ways, but I don't regret it.
Okay, so how so?
It's harder.
How so? What do you mean?
Well, it's tiring sometimes, and you're often risking something, so there's a little low grade tension all the time. My communications are totally screwed. I don't think I have any privacy anymore at all. Once I went to Standing Rock, there's all kinds of things that happen to anybody who's at Standing Rock.
Talk about that some more. Yeah.
Well, they would fly these Cessnas over, and people's device would just blitz out and break. When I was talking to my lawyer, my FaceTime kept going on. My credit cards were declined when they were still good, and I called the credit card companies, and they said, "Oh, your credit card's good. We never got the request." Western Union stopped working. My bank password stopped working. It's intermittent, and probably some of it's just coincidence. But I think that everybody at Standing Rock had enough of that type of thing happen that you can say it's not just coincidence. I guess it's just the next level of government escalation against activists. And I mean, I'm an artist. So if they want to look at my work, I guess it's okay. I mean, it's not okay, but they don't have my permission. But it's really hard being an activist, and I'm a activist who supports a lot of whistleblowers, and so I think that's probably why I'm on some kind of radar.
Interesting. Fascinating.
because we've been really silencing whistleblowers. Obama prosecuted more people under the Espionage Act, and they were mostly whistleblowers, than every president before him since the act was established in, I believe, 1917.
And that's not really common knowledge.
Well, that's why we're saying it.
Right.
We're bringing it up here.
Right. So, Standing Rock. What can you tell us about, for you as an activist, as a person? What came out of that for you? What did you walk away with? What insights?
Well, I mean, the first thing is when you stand beside brown people, they're much more trigger happy. Like, they're way more willing to do bad stuff to African Americans and to Native Americans than the privileged white people like myself. I mean, I totally have white privilege. But when I'm standing next to those people, it's like Standing Rock was as close to a war as you could get. And it was all on the side of the police and the army. The Native Americans in that camp, I'm sorry, there was no weapons allowed, no alcohol, no drugs. You would be thrown out. And so for the sheriffs to go around telling all the farmers to arm themselves, that the Indians are armed, it was a lie. That's the kind of dirty tricks that they pull. And we've broken every treaty we've ever made with the American Indians. We take whatever we want. Once they have something we want, we go and take it. And it's just terribly wrong. And it's really, it's what I guess the English culture does. I mean, the Spanish culture and the French culture weren't particularly lovely to the Native Americans, but once the English came, we just, cut down all the forests and did hydraulic mining and put them all, killed them all, had open season on these people who had all this wisdom and knowledge about our land, and were living on it sustainably. And we felt that was ignorant. So I learned a lot of bad things about us, but I think the thing that really was amazing about Standing Rock was seeing all those First Nations people together, united and sober and nonviolent. I think that's you might lose the battle, but you might win the war.
Right.
When you're united and nonviolent. I think that's a new thing, but it seems to work. We look at the civil rights movement. To me, I look at the civil rights movement as my shining beacon of light, because they won and they did it nonviolently, and they really understood how they were perceived. And they put on their church clothes and they went and acted so beautifully, nobly and politely, asking for what was right. And I think that some of these other movements, like the Native American movement, is really figuring that out. And I mean, I was just there to help. It wasn't my gig, but it was a beautiful, beautiful thing to see. Maybe one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen was that camp.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. Wow. So, what do you feel?
And there's a movie, Awake, A Dream from Standing Rock, that you can see.
Yes.
They're selling it for $6, so go out and get it.
Awake. Hear that, folks? Awake.
The film.
What do you feel we all can do, or what do you feel we all should be, as Americans, aware of now, in this curious climate that we seem to be living in?
I think people are doing it. I mean, I see people waking up all over the country. Ugly's got an ugly face now, and maybe that's a good thing. I mean, it's not a good thing because he's doing all these terrible things, but he's also galvanizing people to stand up. And I read somewhere that if 11% of the country is actively involved in an issue, that's you will win. So we really only need 11% to make some changes. And I think I see all kinds of people out there. Indivisible, I think it's called. I have aunts and uncles that have never gone to a protest before, and they were out there at the Women's March. And so like one of the things I've been doing is I've just been kind of watching in amazement and admiration and giving support to people who are starting up as activists. I have a friend of mine who had a wonderful kite protest in Washington. They have a kite flying thing that's part of the Blossom Festival, and we all flew protest kites. And
Nice.
there's just different ways to get the word out, and just trying to help other people get their actions out.
You know what I want to do? I did this with a friend, but I think as a big group, it would be kind of interesting to do. And then maybe something else on the tail end of it. But I think if we had a caravan and that caravan saged the perimeter of Washington, D.C., with either Native American smudge sticks, something like that. I attempted to do this with a friend. The car nearly caught on fire on the inside. It was kind of hilarious and funny, but I think there's a way to do it where you're purifying the energy in there or something. I don't know, because we all sage our houses.
Like when they levitated the Pentagon back in the 60s.
Yes, that right. And then the vent could end in some Chalkupy, some type of thing. I don't know. I have this vision of just, because I'm an active, I smudge a lot, because, I meditate and do all this other stuff and attempt to be relatively sane in this kooky world.
I actually have some sage from Sandy Rock here in the altar.
Get out. Do you really?
Yeah, sage from Sandy Rock.
See now if we
I haven't burned it. It's almost too sacred to burn.
Right.
I should burn
a huge smudge stick like that, or a series of them. Caravan. There's a loop that goes around DC. Anyway, it's a thought. We should talk about that.
Yeah, well, there is a rolling resistance now from Standing Rock. I think there's somewhere in California right now. And there have been people going to DC, and Myron Dewey, who is somebody I'm hoping you're going to interview soon. He's a Native American. He's Paiute, and he was the drone guy from Standing Rock, and he's really been following through and making a lot of appearances, talking to people about what's going on. Really amazing guy, and he's one of the 3 directors of the movie as well.
Nice. I noticed there was a gun behind your head, but it's not a real gun.
Oh, yes. The only kind of gun I'll ever have. This is a gun made by Alex Schaefer. He's a really good political artist. He's here in LA. He was giving them out. He was dressed as a diabolical money clown, giving them out. He had a whole sack of them on his back, giving out guns. It was Cash for Chaos or something. And he also, he's been arrested for chalking. He kind of rebranded some banks and got arrested for that. And he also does really great oil paintings of burning banks. And he did a thing where all these plein air painters went out to a corner where there was 2 particularly heinous banks in downtown LA, and they all painted the banks on fire.
Amazing.
It was very upsetting to some people.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
a real gun or a toy gun?
It's totally a cardboard gun. I will never have a gun.
Right.
I don't particularly care for them.
Right. I just wanted to
that's for other people.
I knew that, but I wanted to clarify that for people.
Yeah, nonviolence is I really, really believe in it. There's a couple books, this one called This is an Uprising, that really breaks down the theory of it. I highly recommend that book. And really convinced me that, I always had this sense that, I think violence is wrong, but even if it wasn't, I think you're going to win better without it.
Right.
It's not smart either.
Right. So what are you excited about next?
That's a good question. I actually, I wrote a political art diary, and I have a possible agent. We'll see.
It is brilliant, though. I've gone through that. It's pretty brilliant.
Oh, thank you. I don't know. I just kind of wrote down what happened because I didn't want to forget.
Yeah.
But I think the lady's interested in the concept of making activism fun, which is something I've spoken about. I honestly think mass movements just are fun. Occupy Oakland was fun. Standing Rock, there was days where the high was -11 and people were out there in tents and they were happy. Go figure. I think they were happy because they were working for something they actually believed in, instead of for something that they had to do to survive.
Right.
And then they didn't have any kind of spiritual or emotional or intellectual connection with. So making activism fun is an interesting topic, and sometimes it's really not fun. I just don't think knocking on doors is fun. It's just me, maybe. But I was really trying to think, like, what makes something fun? So I asked kids, and
Good place to go. Good go-to.
yeah, they know how to have fun. And there was a lot of different things. There was really almost no one single thing other than you had to have your basic needs met, which isn't fun, but it's not fun unless your basic needs are met. Like, you could be with Madonna at her mansion, but if you're dying of thirst, it's not fun. So once the basic needs are met, which is an important thing for activists, so make sure there's somewhere to go to the bathroom, but we have water, like in Chalkupy we supply water and soap because you get all dirty and it's not fun to be that dirty. But then there were all these different elements, and none of them were essential. Like, you can have, people often mentioned friends, but you can have fun alone, and creativity, but you don't have to be creative. You could have fun just watching a movie. You can have fun because of visual stimulation or any kind of sensory stimulation, but not necessarily. And then my nephew, he gave my favorite answer. He said, well, danger. For instance, playing commando hunt in the schoolyard in the daytime would be boring, but playing it in the woods at night would be fun. And I think that there's the truth to that. Maybe that's the sting that John Lewis talks about. Every protest needs a little bit of sting. I think that's an important element. I think most of my actions have a little bit of danger, not too much, but a little bit makes it fun.
There's some sting in there. Yeah, there's some sting in this, and they are fun. So, what before we close here, and there's so much to just chat about with you, and I love that. What do you feel are a few things that we as Americans, or beyond, need to really be focusing on these days now? Or could be focusing on more, perhaps?
Seeing each other's humanity. That comes from John Lewis again. But we're not going to get anywhere through hating each other. I mean, I hate what this president's doing, but there's lots of people in the area I live in who are big fans of Trump and have voted for him. It doesn't really mean they're not good people to me. I know some people who voted for him who make 5 turkeys at Christmas for the homeless. So I think most people have good in that, and we have to reach out to the good in each other. There's so much infighting sometimes in all of our movements, and I think the hardest challenge is just going to be to all see each other's humanity and to look not even at each other's humanity, but beyond to the other sentient beings in this world, and even the plants and things like that.
Yes, the plants.
I just read this book about the secret life of trees, and apparently
Yes.
they help each other, and they have feelings.
Yes.
I didn't know. Now I feel bad about pulling up all the weeds, and it's just terrible. But I mean, you don't want to you can get ridiculous, and they call you a tree hugger. And obviously hugging a tree won't help. But the idea of caring and seeing the humanity and whatever the word is, I think we need a word for the sentience of all living things, the itty of that, the alivity or the awarenity or whatever.
The
the
alivity of that, yes.
I mean, that's not going to be the word. But I noticed that there wasn't a word. And since we shape language and it in turn shapes us, that maybe we need a word to care about whatever it is in all of the living things, including this planet, including our enemies. They might not know any better.
Right, right. I'd like to finish off with these 2 last questions because they're They're so fun and often revealing.
Oh, okay.
But what's some of the best advice you've been given about life or thriving?
Mm. Well, the first thing comes to mind is the best advice I've ever been given about art, which was Paul Simon. He didn't give it to me, but he gave it in a documentary to some other musicians. And I guess it can apply to life too. He said, okay, go out now and write bad music. Because if you don't, you will never write good music. So I try to do
Love
bad
that.
art, and what happens is, even with Moreland Spurlock did that Failure Club and all. We're so unwilling to make a mistake, to do something bad, to be laughed at or whatever. Go out and do that, because that's how we learn. That's how we get better. You look at kids' drawings, and when they're babies, they're just so alive and free and expressing what they feel, and it's good. And then as they become self-conscious, it shrinks down into the middle of the paper, and it becomes this little thing that their friends will think is cool, and they're trying to draw realistically, and they're worried about whether it's good or not. And that's bad art.
Right, right.
And perhaps that's a bad way to somebody willing to take risks. I think, yeah, take risks.
Take risks. Take risks.
Because life is such a drag without risks.
Oh,
you never can be completely safe. I mean, look at that guy in Monte Carlo who had that safe room, and he ended up dying in his bathroom, locked in his safe place. He was trying so hard to be safe. He died, burned to death in his safe place. So,
right.
I mean, safety is an illusion that we need to let go of, I think.
Right, right. Wow, that's revealing. Thank you for sharing that. So one more question for you. What's the most interesting thing you've learned about yourself lately?
Sorry, that's a hard question.
That's okay.
I don't know. Maybe I haven't learned anything. I mean, I'm always aware of how much I don't know. I'm just amazed at how smart so many people are, and what they're doing, and it's humbling.
Yeah, I get it.
And I guess a friend of mine and I were recently talking about how you have this idea of yourself and this image, but it all eventually erodes, and it's not really what we are. The faces that we put on, the masks, the pretense, or whatever.
It drops.
Oh, I know one
Yes.
interesting thing I learned. I learned that I wanted love, and that a lot of things I was doing that were competitive, like kind of to get love, like to be better looking or more successful. I realized that all that doesn't really get you love, that just being nice and kind and maybe not being all those things is more lovable than to be the most beautiful, spectacular, famous, talented person in the world. It's not really necessarily that lovable.
Right,
And
right,
I think most of us really just want love.
right. We want love. We want love. We want love. Naomi, thank you so much for being a part of the show today. It's really wonderful to see the evolution of what you've been doing, and it's going to be even greater to see what's going on next. So for you, folks, look at the beginning and end credits and find out more about where you can learn about Naomi and the work that she's doing, and to also maybe spark some shifts that you want to make in your life and become more involved in the best way that feels good for the country, for you, for all. So thank you so much, Naomi. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
It was a pleasure being here. Thank you.
All right, we'll see you next time, everyone, on another episode of Mystics in the Chat Room, Conversations with Agents of Change. This is Greg Archer. See you next time. Ciao.